I'm on the radio.
I can't do that. I don't know what that is. I've never done that.
The best is something approximate Woody Woodpecker, I think.
Yes, that's the only direction I'm gonna go, but nobody needs to hear that.
That's the voice. That's the one.
That's what it is. Yeah.
You're going for, it's a modified Woody Woodpecker.
Yeah. You know what? I'm proud of that.
I don't think you should be ashamed.
No, I'm not ashamed. Although people will say that's a weird thing to have, a weird trait, gift.
Look, we
talent.
We threw voices at you, and the one that you decided to latch onto was a cartoon that is no longer on the air. There's nothing wrong with that.
Whoa, no, he's timeless, and they just made a Netflix movie about him like.
Did they
3
really?
years ago. Yeah.
No kidding.
For kids, it sucked. I was watching.
Tell us what you really think about the cinematic genius of Woody the Woodpecker.
Not in today's like modern way do they make it. Ugh. It's still ugh. Anyways, I was watching it with my niece, and I was like, this thing is dumb. The cartoons are better.
Okay.
Yeah. It's when they recreate stuff, and then they try to do it again, and it's like, why?
This wasn't a necessary remake?
No, it was not.
Yeah. I've seen that a lot with those remakes. There was no reason for it. We didn't need another one, but they did it anyway.
Yeah, they're trying to make money. Like, Disney's not really original anymore. They keep doing remakes.
But they didn't improve on the original.
No, they didn't.
If you take an old movie and you're like, we're going to do this, we're going to do it better because now we've got a better sense of like the lineup. We can run this storyline. It's going to fit better in this setting or something like that.
This storyline worked. Let's do it again.
But when you do it again, it's just not the same.
It's not.
That's why I haven't watched any of the Disney live action remakes because I don't think they'll be as good as
Beauty and the Beast is good.
Okay.
That is the only one that I've seen. I refused to watch Lion King after I heard so much about it. I refused to watch Mulan. I said someone told me it was a waste of 3 hours of their life or something. So I'm not going to watch Mulan. But Beauty and the Beast, when that came out, that one was very good.
Okay.
They had new music, and some of the music was what I loved about Beauty and the Beast. The second one is you got to know the characters a little bit more, and I think there was a better storyline that was weaved than in the original. You got a little bit
more into why he had become the Beast.
Yeah, you got more into the story, and they were giving more depth to it. I never
particularly liked the original animated Beauty and the Beast, and in part it was because I didn't really understand how he became the Beast. There was a part of it that just I don't get it. Mm-hmm. Like what exactly was the problem there? Mm-hmm. So those things are just whatever, it's fine. I've moved on.
Well, I mean,
I've moved on.
You can move on by watching the second one.
I don't know. I don't know if I feel like that. I also was very convinced that I probably shouldn't watch the new Aladdin, the live action Aladdin, because I think it's hard to replace Robin Williams as the genie.
You can't do that. Yes.
Because they tried it in some of the second or the sequel movies that they did, mm-hmm. Where eventually Robin Williams wasn't part of it as the genie, and mm-hmm. it was just like,
why?
This is silly.
You're here for their voice.
It's not the same guy. Yeah.
So Aladdin is good too, but I had to prepare myself before watching it that it wasn't going to be the same.
I don't know.
Which is so hard.
There are some movies that don't need to be remade.
That's
and
true.
I'm pretty good with that.
Yeah,
I don't feel like it's necessary to go and do.
But you never watched Lion King 1, 2, or 1.5. I mean, you watched Lion King 1, but did you watch 1.5 and Lion King 2?
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Oh, they're classics.
I had no idea.
They're not. Oh, they're so good. But it's not in a way that we're just going to try to remake it because we want to make more money. The music, like, it grows. Like, it does. It's really good and it's amazing.
Okay.
Especially in Lion King 2.
I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay, so you watch Lion King 2.
Okay.
Lion King 1.5, it's really just about Timon and Pumbaa, and then there's...
Those are the only characters that really matter, though.
Okay, well, it's about them and their crazy life. Yeah. So it's an inside look about everything from their perspective.
And how much time would I have to waste watching this?
I mean, who said you're wasting it? You're investing.
Well said. Yes. Yes, it's an investment of time.
Yes.
This is an investment for the good of my soul and the souls of others. Yes, by watching this movie, I will definitely bring other people to Jesus. Yes.
I'm sure you can finagle something in there.
I can find an eternal value.
Especially in the second movie, you will find it's a story about redemption and forgiveness.
Okay. Well, they say like the first one, it's really all about healing.
Yeah.
So healing leads you to redemption and
Ooh,
forgiveness.
there we go. Yes,
Right,
and
that journey of healing.
reconciliation.
Yeah.
That's the second movie. It's all about reconciliation and forgiveness.
All right.
And it's very good.
Okay.
I mean,
I
anyway.
probably won't watch it, but that's okay.
Dang it.
No, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Oh, that's fine.
It's fine.
Did you watch the Marvel shows I told you to watch?
Did you watch Arrested Development like I told you to watch?
You know what?
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I told you wouldn't do it. I told you. I said we have the recording. Roll the tape. I said I bet you won't watch it. And guess what?
I didn't watch it. You know what happens after I leave this room?
You forget everything that we talked about.
Yep. That's what happened.
I'm glad to see what an enormous influence I've been able to have in your life and how seriously you take the things that I say to you. I'm really glad that you take me so seriously that you actually forget everything that I say to you. That's a real comfort to me.
I genuinely
I'm feeling profound consolation right now. Thanks.
I genuinely forgot you told me to watch that again.
But I didn't just tell you, like,
you told me for years.
Challenged you.
Yeah, you did.
And you said I'm not going to quote you exactly, but you said, now I have to watch it because you challenged me.
Okay. Something happens when I just leave this room.
I don't know. I think your pride got in the way there. You're like, oh yeah, no, I can beat this challenge. I can definitely do it. And then you didn't.
I'm gonna set a reminder on my phone.
No.
I have an aging brain. It doesn't remember things. So no, and I'm like being serious. So don't feel
as though part of your job description now that I'm giving you is to watch TV, a TV show that has been off the air for years.
See?
This
okay.
is great.
New reminder.
Oh my goodness.
Watch Arrested Development.
I'm not ashamed of this.
It's the only way I'm going to remember is if it's on here.
Anybody listening to this, watching this, I am not at all ashamed. This is great.
All I know, banana stand. That is it.
All right. Paola, what are we talking about today? Because I know we started talking about this yesterday, and we said we need to record something about this. And I just want to remember what it is we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about taking stock of the past in ministry in order to, here.
Oh, right, because we started with, how is it that we've been here for 6 years already?
Well, yes, and me, how is it that I'm already in my 7th academic year in youth ministry?
Right.
And I looked at you and I was like, didn't I just start yesterday?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I just started yesterday, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of ways, you did start yesterday. Like we just got started with this, and
yes.
Part of that is, I think, the nature of the type of work, and in ministry,
which you explained, yeah,
like in ministry or in education, you're kind of always developing, you're always growing, and so there's always something new to find, that's one of the gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain amount of it that's routine.
Yeah.
So I show up at these times on these dates, but there's always something kind of new about it. So even though I might be in the same place for a long period of time,
mm-hmm.
Doing the same kinds of things for a long period of time, there's always something new. And because the people change that you're around, if you're in a school environment, a youth ministry environment, the students that you're ministering to are going to be different each year.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something always new about it. You've got to learn new personalities. You've got to learn things that are going to impact this particular group. You'll need even as current events are changing, or little cultural things. So you figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do. And something that you did once 7 years ago, you would never think to do now.
Right.
Because it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't resonate. It wouldn't have the same kind of present day.
I'm trying to think what that would be.
Well, a lot of it is things like, what song did you play?
Oh yeah.
That particular year.
We're not playing Oceans anymore.
Right. So it could be a praise and worship song. It could be a particular reference to a TV show that was really popular.
Colloquial terms.
Colloquial terms change every 6 months.
Yep.
The things that the kids are saying.
Sheesh.
Yeah, the kids are saying these days. That's lit, fam.
Those cookies over there are bussin'.
Yeah, I've never heard that phrase before. I mean, I know what busing is. It means to get on a bus and be transported to another location via this large vehicle that is called a bus.
Did you say vehicle?
I said vehicle, yeah.
Who pronounces the H?
The South.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you're not from the South.
I am not. No, I was saying it to just add emphasis to the word.
That's a lot of breath. Okay, continue.
But anyway, so there are things that are always changing.
Yeah.
And so I think in many ways, youth ministry will always feel very new
Yes.
And therefore it feels like you just began.
Yes. It's weird.
The other aspect of ministry that we do is because in ministry, we tend to always be looking to the next thing.
That's what I liked about what you said yesterday.
Yeah, it's like what has to happen next.
Right.
So there's a combination. First, let's take the idea of making plans, right? Because that I think is probably the most positive expression of it. We have to make a plan. We have to know what's coming ahead. So a teacher has to sit down and write out lesson plans for the year and know what they plan to teach, what the course is going to look like over the course of this time, how they're going to structure it, how they're going to incorporate different resources and things. You get your syllabus at the beginning of a semester from your professor, and that takes you through this is everything that we're doing. And so you're making your plan for study. You're making your plan for how the course will be structured and where you're going. In the same way, in youth ministry, you kind of make your plan for the year. This is what we're going to accomplish this year. These are the events that we have coming up that are going to require more effort, more energy. These are the things that we need more volunteers to help us with.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking ahead to that next thing. Likewise, you're responding to the immediate needs that are coming. And so a student comes in, I need help with this now. I have somebody walk in the office, Father, I need to talk about, you name the subject, and I need to talk about it now. The funeral director calls, we have a funeral coming in and it's going to be on this day. It's always something that's coming up. We're getting married and we want to get married at St. Pius. So can we have this date? And we're looking forward to the date. And you're meeting the person now here to talk about this thing, to address this issue. A lot of times it can feel like triage, right?
Interesting.
So triage, here comes the emergency. We've got to make sure that we stop the bleeding and take care of it and get them comfortable. And then we can move on to the next person who's gushing blood everywhere. Right? That's youth ministry. That's parish ministry.
That's my day to day.
Yeah, a lot of it is triage. But here's the danger I think that we face as ministers. And that is that we'll spend so much time being focused on the immediate emergency or the immediate need that is presenting itself that we'll forget to look back.
Yep.
We'll spend so much time planning and mapping out what's coming in the future that we won't really pause and examine what has happened.
Yep.
And so we can spend so much time always in that motion, in that go mode, that we forget to look back at what we've done. And sometimes that can get in the way of a lot of things. So
of the new growth.
Yeah, there can be a lack of new growth. There can be a sense that we have to repeat what we've always done because it becomes the routine. So I know to do this, so we've just got to keep repeating it.
Yeah.
There can also be a way of looking back and not seeing how things have progressed or where growth has been most present. And so we get discouraged because we're constantly trying something new, or we're constantly planning for the next thing, or we're constantly responding to this, and we don't see the growth happening because we don't pause to look back.
Yeah. It's hard, and this is why the burnout rate for youth ministers is they stop at about 18 months. And how do you get in for the long
7 years, baby.
I was like,
that's pretty good.
Honestly, I'd like to think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Most people don't last this long.
No.
People who sign up for this, understanding that, okay, part of it is a call, but it's how do you stay in it for the long haul? And Life Teen had this really good talk this summer about this, so I just pulled it up. So he focused on 3 different things, like the spiritual thriving, the physical thriving, and then just the emotional and the intellectual. And like those 3 areas, how are you growing in that? So what would you describe the spiritual nature of youth ministers?
The spiritual nature of youth ministers is, I think a youth minister spiritually is,
I think you got to be a little crazy.
You've got to be a little bit crazy, and you need to have a certain maturity that allows you to deal with immaturity. And I mean spiritual immaturity. I don't mean physical or emotional immaturity. I mean spiritual immaturity. So, for example, you could have a kid coming in and talking about they're really struggling to focus in prayer lately. and lately means since Monday.
Yeah.
And it's Thursday.
Yeah.
they're
Second question
talking-
is, do they have a habit of prayer?
Yeah, they're talking about how much I've been really, really struggling a lot for a long time. Since when? Since Monday. It's Tuesday afternoon, kid. What's wrong with you? But that sort of inability to recognize that something that's difficult right now, and it's not a bad thing. I don't mean that as a negative against a young person who's struggling that way, because that's very genuine.
Yeah.
But in that struggle, they're not seeing that there's something bigger, and that there's such a thing as time, and it's just generally young people don't see that far ahead.
No, they can't. They really
can't.
don't.
No.
It's hard. And so you have to kind of be there to show them the long haul. And then when you show them, they're like, why? I'm like, this is what it is.
Right. But then they come to understand that long haul and the perspective from, to have an adult who can speak to you about here's what it will look like in a few years.
Yeah.
And here's why it's so worthwhile.
Yeah.
That gives you some hope. In high school, I remember having people who could give me that little indication that it's not always going to feel like this. It's not always going to look like this. There are actually good things that are going to come. It's just going to require a little bit of extra work right now. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I also, just thinking about all the youth ministers that I was with this past summer at Life Teen Conference, everybody's like spontaneous.
Yeah, there's got to be some spontaneity.
There has to be something in you that is flexible. So to be willing to drop something and change it for something else. So just move wherever the Spirit is calling you to do it. And all right, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. You have to be fluid, take in the shape of the container. What is it that you need to move and just be? So I think there needs to be room for flexibility. And so most youth ministers that I know are just so ready to move and move quickly.
But you see, the human person is meant to be flexible, but not liquid.
Oh,
right. No, but this is important, because the idea of taking the shape of the container, okay, that can work in certain situations, but it can't work forever.
Yes, it's true.
Right. It can't work forever. We need to have some kind of structure. It's necessary for human thriving. And so a youth ministry is taking liquid.
Yeah.
That's what the teens are. That's what your kids are. They're liquid, and they need to be formed into something that's more solid.
Right.
But you don't want to create in their hearts. You don't want to create in your own heart something that's so solid that it doesn't move.
Right.
And that it can't
grow. Which I have also seen from so many other people.
Yeah.
On the other side of the spectrum.
Well, what's the solid state of liquid?
Ice.
It's frozen. Yeah, it's something frozen. So you don't want something and then it's also very fragile.
Yeah.
Right, because ice shatters. If you drop ice all over the place, and then it's destroyed.
Yeah.
So you've got to be.
You're curating
looking
a
for
space
something,
in an environment for them to move around in, but not fall off to the sides.
Right. For somebody who's in ministry, and I think this holds true. This is youth ministry. This is parish ministry.
Yes.
This is somebody who's working with the elderly, with the grieving, whoever it might be. You've got to be able to respond to the need as it presents itself. And so in that way, it's liquid. You're responding. This is the container that I need to be in right now.
Yeah.
This is where I need to give my time, my energy. And so I've got to be ready to adjust and adapt to that and fill that space as best I can with God's help. But then there's that other part that needs to be a little bit more solid, that says, I know what's needed, and these are the parameters that we have to go in. And in fact, I can't go into this particular situation in this way. I can't present myself this way, or I can't do exactly what is being asked right now, because what's being asked might be the wrong question.
Yeah.
This situation requires me to actually give more structure. To set more boundaries, to create the channel in which this can actually move appropriately.
Right, and to let it grow. What do you think are the things that youth ministers struggle with the most?
I think youth ministers probably struggle the most with, in no particular order, because I don't think I could properly rank them for people. I think that they probably struggle most with lack of support, either from pastors or from parents. So they're not getting the support they need within the parish office, or from the parents whose kids are being served by the youth ministry. I think that's one. I think that youth ministers would struggle with the schedule and the time, and thinking that they either need to put in far more hours
Mm-hmm.
than they really do,
Mm-hmm.
or feeling pressure. I think we do a pretty good job of that here in terms of hours. Like, you don't have to be here. The youth ministry team does not have to show up at 9 a.m. and
Nope.
work 9 to 5 or anything like that. It's
Mhm.
I think we're doing a good job of
Yeah.
being flexible. That you tell me if I'm not.
Oh no, I just remember my first week here. I said, "So what are my hours?" He's like, "Whatever you want."
You
I don't
got to make your
expect.
hours.
I was like, "What?" Nice, but it made sense
Right.
because I would be here late nights.
Right, and flexibility around the hours that you're going to be doing actual ministry.
Yeah.
For the young people, that's important.
Yeah.
I think another piece where they would struggle is just with prayer,
Mm-hmm.
personal prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because priests struggle with it.
Yep.
Anytime you're ministering to other people and you're kind of on all the time,
Yep.
for being a presence that brings God to others, to bring God to yourself in your own prayer, or to let God approach you in prayer can be really hard because you're so used to always trying to be the bridge for somebody else.
Yes.
And so you forget that you need a bridge also. And I think that's one of the easiest things in ministry, not just youth ministry, but any kind of ecclesial ministry, anything that you're doing where you're trying to give spiritual gifts to another person.
Or just in everyday life, whether you're not in ministry.
True.
You know.
Yeah, you can struggle to recognize your own need for that being rebuilt.
Yeah.
Right. Another one is just frustration, because we don't always see the results the way that we want to see them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a plan going into, I'm gonna do this ministry, and I want to have 20 people showing up every week, and then those 20 people, I want at least 7 of those 20 people to really step forward as big time leaders. And I want those 7 people to then help to grow everything, so that eventually within the next year we grow to 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be because those 7 people really stepped up and have helped to go out and get more people. So we start measuring things too much, and then it doesn't work out exactly that way. I remember we had Sean Forrest on while you were away over the summer, and I distinctly remember showing up to youth group one afternoon, and it was me and one other kid. We were the only ones who showed up. And he had a whole stack of handouts for us, of like stuff that he wanted to talk about, and like a little reflection packet for us so we could sit down and kind of do some journaling.
Yeah.
He had all this stuff ready, and no one showed up. And I remember like seeing the frustration on his face, and he was good at not taking it out on anybody or expressing it, but like I could just see in his face that he was frustrated that nobody showed up. He had done all this prep work. He had gotten all these things together. He was excited to talk about this stuff with us, and no one was there. And that's an easy thing. If nobody shows up, it can feel like, what did I do this for?
What did you do wrong?
You blame yourself,
Yeah.
right? Instead of just the fact today was a bad day, or a whole bunch of people got sick, or whatever it was.
Or
Remember,
Richards were coming up or something.
When I was in Greenwich at a parish there, I was assigned to teach the 8th grade boys religious ed. And I walked into the classroom one day, and there were 3 kids there out of 30.
Whoa.
It was an overly big class, and I couldn't stand that part of it. That wasn't a good thing. Anyway, so there's a massive class, and there's 3 boys there. And I looked at them and I said, "What's going on?" They're like, "We're the public school kids, Father." So what do you mean? All the private schools have mandatory team sports in place of gym class. The way they fulfill their state phys ed requirement was everybody had to be on a team. And that day, there were 3 private schools that were represented in that classroom. And every single boy was on a team that had a game that day.
Wow.
And so I only had 3 kids show up for the class. And it felt like, what am I doing here? And now, granted, it was entirely outside of my control and outside of their control, right? But there was this moment of just feeling like they don't want to be here. They've all, because I've taken on this class, because I came in the middle of the year, and like this was maybe 3 weeks after I got there. So it's like I must have done something. I must have really failed them. They must not like me, and that's why they're not here. They all decided to skip, and then I knew that wasn't the answer because the kids were able to explain to me why nobody was there. But still,
right? No, it definitely hurts. But there's this you really got to like teach yourself to say this even when like nobody shows up or you have like few numbers. is at least I get to speak the gospel even to one soul.
'Cause-
And if heaven rejoices over one soul,
Right.
like saying yes to the gospel, then all the angels are singing.
Yeah.
And you have to get yourself into that mindset, like it's still worth it, even if there are 5 or like 10 people.
Right.
Like this is still going to be good. And you kind of feel bad afterwards, but moments I have put myself in that mindset when it's just been an off day, I was like, wait, that was
Yeah.
glorious. Because that allowed me to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody I probably would not have had a one-on-one conversation with. Or like somebody needed extra attention and I could do that.
Cardinal Dolan in New York tells a story of exactly that happening. He says when he was a young priest, he was scheduled to give a talk one night, and 2 hours before the talk was supposed to begin, it started to snow. And he ended up with only 5 people at this talk. They were expecting 100.
Oh, no.
And so he gave the talk to the 5 people who showed up. And he was disappointed that there wasn't a better turnout. He was disappointed in the way the weather went. He was disappointed that he thought that the snow wasn't going to last, so he didn't cancel the talk or postpone it. Instead, he just did it. And so he felt like he hadn't done enough for the people who missed the talk. And he was forgetting about the people who were there. And a year later, he got called to a hospital to anoint a woman who was dying. And her husband was there with her. And he told then Father Dolan about this practice that he had taken up of going to Mass as many times during the week as he could, if not every day, at least several days during the week besides Sunday, and how he was going to Mass, and every day at the offertory, as the priest offered the bread and the wine, he just spiritually would place his wife and her illness on the altar. And Dolan says, that's a great idea. How did you come up with that? And he said, well, that talk that you gave, you told us to do that. And he forgot that this man had been one of the 5 people at the talk that he gave during the snowstorm. And something that he said during that talk gave this man a spiritual insight into how he was going to take care of and pray for his wife in her terminal illness.
Wow.
And he said, this is why you do it no matter who shows up.
And you're not going to know. And honestly, I think I've said this before, I cannot wait to go to heaven, God willing, and then see how whatever I said or what was the impact that was left that it led somebody to make a different decision.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to know all of it here on earth. There's no way.
Right.
But I'm going to have a play-by-play marathon like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great.
Yeah.
Like just to see what that impact was because I was willing in the moment.
Yeah. I think the last thing I would say that to me, it seems like youth ministers would struggle with is that perspective on the past. Again, because in ministry we tend to always be forward looking, we don't always take the time to really reflect on what's happened. And so to see where God's been present and recognize the blessings, this is what theological reflection is meant to be about. When you take some time to theologically reflect on, spiritually reflect on your ministry, it gives you a chance to look back and recognize God was present in this moment. In this way, I effectively proclaimed the truth of the gospel. In this way, I failed to effectively proclaim the truth of the gospel. In this moment, I saw God's grace active in the following ways. I recognized the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and these specific gifts of the Holy Spirit were present here. Or I recognized that I need these gifts of the Holy Spirit to be released in this group, or in this ministry, in this way. And that gives you then some fuel to pray for the future. But it also allows you to see the ways in which your work is in fact bearing fruit, is in fact being blessed by God. But we don't do that often enough. And the reason we don't do it is just because we get busy taking care of the next thing. We get busy with triage.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So this is exactly why the church says go on retreat at least once a year.
Right.
For everybody. Like go take stock of your life, see because that once you have the opportunity to actually rest and reflect on your life, what has been, even if it's been really difficult, you've now put yourself in a position where you can see where the Lord has been the whole time.
Right.
And you realize, whoa, wait a second. The dude never left me. The dude Almighty. God Almighty.
Yeah, the dude. Okay. Wow. The dude abides. Sorry, is that really bad?
That's funny.
Is that really bad? That's really bad.
That's really
bad. No,
funny.
that's bad.
Oh yeah. I mean, because you talk to Jesus. Everybody has their own like way of talking to Jesus. Anyways, I'm about to disclose my personal prayer life and
like,
how I talk to Jesus.
Hey God, what's up? It's me, Paola. How's it going?
Just reminding you that I'm right here, man.
Paola starts off all of her prayers though she's doing an intro to a YouTube video. Hey guys, what's up? It's Paola, and I just wanted to talk to you today about.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Anyways, oh gosh, it's fine.
Okay,
But
here's the last thing I'm gonna throw out there for things that I would suspect that youth ministers can struggle with, very much in the way that priests would struggle with this. And again, this goes, I think, really to anyone who is dealing with a ministerial position. It's that tendency not to do the things necessary for yourself. And I don't want to sound
yeah, that's the next part in here.
Cool. Yeah, I don't want to sound hip or cool talking about like self-care is so important, because it is. I don't discount that at all. But there's a way in which when you're in ministry and you have a heart for ministry, we tend to think maybe I don't need to do those things. I can do without it. And then unfortunately we look at the great lives of the saints, and it sounds like a strange beginning of a sentence. Unfortunately, we look at the lives of the saints, because it's never unfortunate to do that. But we'll look at the saints, and we tend in our biographies of the saints to focus on their sacrifices, to focus on the way that they gave of themselves so generously that they kept nothing for themselves. Yeah. There's a nobility in that and a beauty in that. Yep. But not all of it is what we are all called to do in exactly that same way. And so there is a need to take care of yourself and to admit when you need some time, to take the opportunity for a day off, to rest, to do those things. Because otherwise you'll get so caught up in always being in ministry mode that the ministry itself actually starts to weigh on you too much.
Yeah, you start lacking in charity.
Yeah, and then
your ministry.
And then you start to resent the very people that you're supposed to be ministering to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's really, for me, it's more to prevent that than it is to say you shouldn't be sacrificing. I'm all for the big sacrifices and the working really hard and giving of yourself. But there's got to be that time where you just pull back because you need the break. I mean, it's one of the things I get aware of if I haven't taken a day in a while. Like, I need to get out of the office for your sake. You all need a break from me. You need me to not be around for a little while. You need me out for a couple hours just so that you don't have to deal with me. And I know that, right? And I get it. But I also realize that I need that little break just to get out, because it gives me a refreshed way of looking at things. If I get out for a day, just for a day, and I'm not in the office for 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever time the office was supposed to be open, I'm not here. I'm out. Coming back the following day, coming back to a ministerial thing, I'm actually ready. I'm more eager to get into it because I've had that time pulled back. So I think that taking that time can be a huge challenge for people in ministry. Yeah. Because we're kind of trained to, especially priestly ministry, we're trained give generously. Right. And I can tell you from the time I was in seminary, it's really drilled into us. Don't be that lazy priest that only rolls out of bed to say mass and does nothing else. Because you see that sometimes. Guys who don't really do anything other than the exact sacramental responsibilities. I say, you've got to be more than that. That's what good priestly ministry is. I think that's what good ministry is in general. It's going beyond just what is absolutely required of you. Right. But at the same time,
taking care of the whole human person.
Right. So doing that cannot come at the cost of.
Right. Because then there's nothing for you to give.
Right. Right. If you're so spent that you've really got nothing, or you're starting to resent yourself, your job, your ministry, the people that you minister to, then you can't be an effective minister. No. Yeah. Oh, one more thing. One more thing. I'm sorry. This isn't so much a struggle. I see this as a need for people who are in ministry. We need the chance to keep growing.
I was going to say that. That's going to be the next part.
Go for it. Then you take it.
Yeah. So you have the physical and the emotional thriving. The next part is the intellectual part. And read something else that isn't like a religious book. That is the one thing that so many people in ministry don't do is, what have you read that isn't about a saint, that isn't about, how to grow your prayer life or how to give a great, presentation to teens. It's what have you read for fun to grow intellectually?
Yeah. What are you reading right now?
That's a great question. That's not a good question to ask me right now because that is a struggle. So I am that person who's usually reading a saint book or some biblical reference, literally something that always has to do with like church.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. It's so hard. But then I don't read enough because I'm not reading other things.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I understand. I'm very slowly right now working my way through a book about Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh.
And his whole family background. So it's like before his presidency, it's him growing up and the family that he grew up in and some characteristics of them. It's very, very interesting. And I'm also reading a book about, this is more of a professional one. And it's about counseling and giving guidance to people who struggle with sexual addiction.
All right. So you got the two.
So I've got the two. I've got like this is just reading for fun. And this is reading that's going to actually help the ministry.
Yeah.
This is the professional development part.
See, yes, that's good. That's good. I have like you gave me a book, the Wellspring of Worship.
Yeah.
So I started that, but then I started something else. That's the thing with me in books. I don't finish them one by one.
So the Wellspring of Worship, if I can give you any advice about reading that, is just pick it up, but don't stop reading it. Keep reading all the way through. Don't put that one down. Make sure that that's one that you keep going with, because some of the themes you can forget pretty easily. This little insight that he gives.
Oh, and it's connecting to something. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is something that I need to do on retreat.
Yeah, for sure.
In other words, because of the pandemic, I have not been on retreat, and I feel it.
Yeah.
I feel it.
When are you going?
I don't know. It depends when the sisters are open again.
Okay.
I can ask Father Silva.
Yeah, we'll get you on a retreat.
I was feeling it like about a month ago. I was like, I haven't really had the time, unless it was like forced into, Damascus was not a forcing into. It was an unexpected healing that I received through another priest, but it wasn't like the intention of me to go away for 3 days in silence.
Right.
And just really take that time.
And because when you went to Damascus, that was part of your ministry.
It was part of your
job.
Exactly.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
No.
So I definitely need to do that, because when you're on retreat, you're not just refreshed spiritually, but like physically, you get like really good food.
Oh yeah.
You get the rest that you needed. And so those are the three things that you, hopefully when you go on retreat, that you bring back into your daily life. How am I going to continue to grow spiritually? Take moments for like good rest, to go on walks and things like that. Yeah. And then, but the Sisters of Life, they make the best food.
They do a nice job with their menu.
They do a great job, and they know that food is the way to delight the heart, and it helps people enter into the presence of God. Like, they do it so well.
Because here's the thing, and I've said this before, I think maybe even on the podcast. If you're going on retreat and you want to have a good retreat,
you gotta have good food.
You need good food more than you need anything else.
Yes.
If the food is bad, that's going to be the thing that you're thinking about all day long.
Yeah.
If the food is good, you don't worry about that. And then you can deal with it's a little bit chilly. You can deal with it's a little too hot. You can deal with the talks are boring. You can deal with all these other things, because you know what? The food's not that bad.
You're looking forward to it.
When the food's not that bad, you can pray with greater peace.
Yes.
Because you're not hungry.
Then you're also in a place of, attitude of gratitude. You're like, I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
And then you begin to see all these other things that you could be grateful for.
Right. Or you're able to overlook the stuff that isn't that good.
Yeah.
Because you're comfortable otherwise. You're sated in other ways.
Mm-hmm. So I have 4 things that would help anybody in ministry.
Okay. That
Joel Stepanek talks about. So Joel Stepanek is I believe.
He works for Life Team.
He works for Life Team. I can't remember his title right now. I think he's the vice president of parish outreach.
Okay.
So anyways, he gives a lot of talks. And he says there's 4 things for anybody in ministry to just kind of work on. This first one is really more particularly for teens, but if you're a youth ministry and you're listening, well, welcome. So he says, if you feel burdened, go hang out with teens. Their little problems make your big one disappear. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, yes, this is...
Now, do you think that's because their little problems give you new insight into what you think is a big problem?
Always.
And makes you realize that what you have decided is a big problem is actually really small?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good. Second one, he says, find people you can vent to in a holy way who understand you. I think there needs to be space for this. And I've experienced this, but you vent and then you shut up. Like, so
Yeah.
giving you the space to, because everybody, especially if you're struggling with something, you need to feel like you're being heard. But then in charity, maybe that conversation doesn't need to continue, but at least you were able to air it out.
There's a line between venting and gossip
Yes.
that needs to be very carefully observed.
Yes.
Because you're right, it's necessary to vent, but that venting can be a way of saying, I am struggling.
Right.
It's not necessarily about this person or this situation. It's I personally am struggling with this.
Right.
And I need someone to know that I'm in this struggle.
Right.
I am dealing with a situation that's difficult, and I don't know if I'm handling it well. Am I doing it the right way? That's part of the venting. It can also just be I'm frustrated, and I know that if I hang on to the frustration, it's gonna destroy
boil.
me.
Yeah.
But knowing when to say vent and stop.
Right.
Vent, get this out so that somebody else can hold you accountable, can walk with you, can pray for you, can give you some insight and advice.
Right.
But then stop venting, because otherwise that becomes giving voice to resentment, anger, giving voice to gossip, potentially saying things that aren't true, and then there's sort of like
changes your whole
the fun
mood
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It steals your joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the third one is have a sense of humor.
No.
Ridiculous. But really, like, find things that are funny and like be able to, that's really important.
Have you ever seen the person who has no sense of humor when it comes to their ministry or to their teaching, to their position? That person who has no sense of humor is really hard to work with.
To be around.
Yeah.
And you know what? Joy, in heaven, it's joy.
Right.
Like, that's what heaven is. Heaven is pure joy. So we should have joy here on earth, even in the things that we're dealing with. And then the fourth part is be in touch and receive from other people, which is hard. So whether you work in ministry or not, is how are we reaching out to other people, letting them know of our needs?
Yeah.
Are we so like dependent on ourselves to get through it? Because it's like, we're going to do it by our bootstraps, and that's how we're going to run things. And then when I'm like tired and aching and I'm crawling on the floor, then I'll ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of this.
Sure.
I'm so guilty of this.
Yeah. So part of that is it's having community, people who you can talk to. Part of that is, being ready and willing to ask for help. Where do you find it most? Is it the community, or is it like the lack of community, or not being intentional with community, or for you is it not asking for help?
Gosh, I think you just said everything that I've struggled with.
So both and.
It's all of them in different seasons. Different seasons. A man for all seasons.
Winter,
a woman.
Spring, summer, or fall.
Yeah, no. Sometimes you, especially when you first started, you're so excited. You're like, I'm just gonna do it, and you start kind of doing it all, and then you realize you're not really delegating. So how are you calling in the people who are working with you to do stuff with you? So one, that's a pride check, and then you realize, oh wait, this has to be a team effort. But then there are other seasons where like you probably don't have that community, which it wasn't always like present for me. Like, oh, well, I'm kind of on my own for this for a little bit, or trying to like find more people to help out. So you just get used to doing it all yourself again. It's cognizant of why is it that I'm constantly leaning on myself. So all of what I've experienced in ministry in the last 7 years has made me reflect on my personal story. Why do I tend in that direction, and what drives that? That it's not just always circumstantial and like, oh, I don't have enough people right now in this particular year or whatever. It's a lot of it has to do with me. I am used to doing things myself because of my own personal story. So to phase out of that, I realize how that is affecting the ways in which I do minister, or ways in which I do ministry. So I think that's another big part, is how is your personal story playing a role in whether or not you ask for help.
See, I'll find a lot of times I need that community, but I'll tend to go, it's getting late and I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And so in the rectory, for example, I've got 2 priests that I live with. And so to take some extra time and just sit with them in the evening, because they're both coming back from their ministries.
Yeah.
And when we've got a chance to sit together and talk, whether it's over a meal or just to sit down and have a conversation, it can be really helpful. There are times where it's just, let's sit down and watch an episode of a show together. We'll watch this part of the game together. And it's funny because, like, depending on what the sport is, there might be like 2 of us who are more interested than the third.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so
what's the preferred sport of choice?
Well, there's 2 of us who actually enjoy watching sports, and there's a third that doesn't.
I want to try to guess who it is. But then I might guess and be just completely surprised over the other one.
I'm one of the sports fans.
I know that. Yeah. I know you are.
So in any case, we'll sit down. Like, sometimes it's just the sake of being together to do something together. That's really important.
Yeah.
And I realize it's not just restorative for me. It's not just good for me to have that fraternity. It's good for the other guys too. And there are times when I'll shy away from that because I've had a long day. And so I'm getting kind of lost in my own world of, this is what I've done today. These are all the things that have been happening. And I'm getting back now into the house, and it's like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And you know what? You guys are just getting back from whatever you've had to do. But I'm done. So I'll see you tomorrow. And it's nothing like against them. I'm not mad at them.
It's not personal. It's like, no, I need my personal space.
Yeah, exactly. That's my introverted side coming out. Like, I need to be away from humans for a little while. But I also have learned that there are times when I need to sacrifice that and just be there. And it doesn't have to be for a long time. Sometimes it's 10 extra minutes, 20 extra minutes, just to make that connection. And, okay, here we go. But the asking for help part, I think, is probably the hardest. You know, because then you've got to think about, who are you going to ask for help? From whom will you seek this assistance? And then making sure that you're picking somebody who's going to do it, or worrying that you didn't pick the right person, or worrying that you didn't pray enough about who you should ask. You know, that can be hard, and yet we just have to do it. Just got to put it out there, and I need some help.
Or practice with doing it.
Yeah. So that's those are good points.
Yeah, I mean, good everyday points that they're so simple, but honestly, how many of us actually struggle with it?
Yeah.
All of us.
Sure, everybody.
So
everybody.
Getting back to the basics. Yeah. So.
All right, so that's a chance to do some professional development and move forward.
You mean Arrested Development?
Arrest. Ooh, that was good. That was good. No, see, I think these are the things. I was
proud of myself. That was a good moment.
Well done. No, these are the things that it's important to do. You got to take time for prayer. You got to take time to take care of your own stuff.
Yeah.
But that you don't want that to interfere with what the ministry really is, to serve other people, to give of yourself generously for them, and to help them along the way. Those things are so important. But yeah, a lot of times we're just looking forward to the next thing, and we don't take time to really take stock, to look back. You know, I remember one year, as I was getting into high school, like I must have been like a junior or senior in high school. Sean had left the parish and moved on to some other stuff. And we had a new youth minister who had come in, and she was pulling out these old pictures from past youth group stuff. And so pulling out these old pictures from past youth group things, she was just putting out all this stuff of like my group, my classmates and everything from back when we were in 7th or 8th grade. And it was just looking at baby pictures. And that's what it felt like. We're looking at baby. Look how young you guys were. And this was only a couple years before, right?
Wow.
But just taking that moment, I remember thinking, when this picture was taken, I didn't know anything about my faith. When this picture was taken, I didn't know anything about where I stood with Jesus. And now where I am. And the difference in my spiritual. So it was a chance for me as a kid to look back and see that I had grown spiritually, and not just that I had grown physically.
Yeah.
You know, this is when I was so tiny and short and you know, childish, and now I'm not that anymore. And there's something beautiful about that. But more importantly was recognizing that spiritual growth. Well, I think in ministry, if we can do something similar, maybe not looking back at pictures.
No.
But we don't always want to look back at the pictures, right?
That baby picture. And legit baby picture.
Legit baby picture, exactly. But if we can look back and see the ways that we have grown, that God has been present and working in our hearts and our lives, when we can recognize that and see how it's been happening, we can have that look back and see then what God also has in store for us in the future.
You know what's also interesting too is, let's say you've had experiences that have been very difficult. Like even during my time as a missionary, there were some difficult moments in that. And when I look back on my time as a missionary, I look at it more fondly now than when I first left. Because some things were still like either stinging me or hurting. Because, you know, you're with a bunch of people and sometimes you just get hurt and it just happens. What I found interesting was how time had healed my own perspective of the past. And that when I looked on it years later, I'm like, wow, I'm really grateful for that experience. Or like, that was really hard then, but it helped me to grow in this way. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that, you know, it made me the person that I am today in an area that I didn't, you know, I couldn't have foreseen growing. So I thought that was really interesting, is even looking back on the hard times, when you reflect back and like, no, like that provided something for me. And I'm grateful to the Lord for that. Kind of hurt in the middle of it. You know, it genuinely did, but it brought about new growth. So
that's great.
Yeah. It's just all about bringing about new growth in your life. What are the things that you need to prune back? What are the things that you need to graft to the Lord so that it does grow with him? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
That's it.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay, cool. Hey, this was fun.
Thanks, Father Sam.
Yeah, good. Go on retreat.
I gotta go find one now.
I'm 2 years away from sabbatical.
Yeah, I know we talked about that
I can't
yesterday.
I can't wait. I have no idea what I'll do, but in 2 years I can take like a couple months and go on sabbatical.
That's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Can I do that? I'm kidding.
We'll find a way.
Can I find a way to do a 30-day Ignatian retreat?
I think we can find a way. It might take a while, but we'll figure something out.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, this is We're Like the Lamb. I'm Paola Peña.
I'm Father Sam Kachuba.